Globalizing the Indigenous artistic and cultural heritage of Akwa Ibom State, critical considerations and the achievement agenda. Globally, we will see that cultures are being silenced at a frightening rate. And if you want to know that cultures are silenced, you look at the language, which is a major indicator of culture. I see the preference for English. And even amongst us in Akwa Ibom, you discover that many parents insist that their children learn English as their L1, the first language. What happened to our indigenous languages? Even worse is the fact that one's inability to communicate in English language is always interpreted as illiteracy. Many people hide under the garment of religion in particular to drive down our cultures. They condemn our African art and festivities, and carnival, for instance, has been branded as carnal. Some of our fashions, such as bead wearing, hairstyles, and facial embellishments, have been labeled as spirit appeasing, that we use those things because we try to appease certain spirits. It's not totally right. Again, many of the forces that come with these challenges are from within. So we are the people driving down our culture. This probably explains why many African writers, the early African writers, bemoaned the sorry state of impending death of African art. But Frank Willett happily dismissed them by saying they are mistaken. They are mistaken for the fact that, despite the fact that they have said that African art and culture will finally be eroded, we are still here today dancing and celebrating. They are mistaken. Today we are going to reinvent alternative ways that we can retain our cultural heritage. Two very major quotes come to mind regarding the consequence of losing your own culture. The first one is from Marcus Garvey, that Jamaican Pan-Africanist and right activist, who said that people without knowledge of their culture, origin, are like trees without roots. Another one that comes to mind is that the day a people lose their culture is when they begin to die. They become like seaweeds that float and know not where they go. That's actually another one. But those two quotes illustrate the danger of losing our own culture. So we have to be very careful when we push to adopt foreign cultures. Africans should not be too hasty to adopt some elements of foreign culture, because there are issues that we need to resolve. In fact, there are certain questions that we will be made to answer. Questions about our identity. Who are you? What is your culture? Nobody is going to answer these questions for you. Nobody is going to protect your culture for you. No foreigner is going to stand in your place to retain your culture, because it's not theirs. I watched recently a TED talk that was offered by one chica, Esekong, on the title, How Africa Can Use Traditional Knowledge to Make Progress. And she used the Tassa irrigation technique that is practiced in Niger Republic to illustrate her point. It's an irrigation technique that little holes are dug within the farmland, and when the rains come, the rainwater will collect within the holes, and in between the plant sorghum, millet, and all the grains that are planted in that region. It was adjudged that that method of irrigation was far better than the Western adopted options. But we're not going to dwell so much on the negatives, the disadvantages, because we are here to see how we can push forward to place our indigenous art, performances, visuals, and all that on the global shop. From our Akwa State, what are we marketing? It's time to see how we can take stock of the things that we market. In our Akwa State, I have divided our indigenous, artistic, and cultural heritage into three broad domains of categories. First one is the performative domain. The second one is the visual arts and craft domain, and the third one is the literary domain. The performative domain is virtually what we do here. We watch that very rich performance on stage. There was music, there was dance, there was drumming. Now, talking about Akwa Ibom music, let me remark that even the folk music is very rich and popular. The music of Chief Ukopan, for instance, has given birth to a movement called Ukopanism, and it has become like a cultural and intellectual movement. And I was wondering when I was sitting there waiting for my turn to climb up here, why the initial patronage to very Western music that I even took. What happened to our Ukopan? What happened to our folk song? Until one of those people in the entourage of the DC walked up to say, this is a cultural show. Let's play. At that point, I breathed in and out that somebody at least understands where we are. And I'm going to talk about later on the need to preserve our own, the need to use your own. Talking about music, even the indigenous folk music are now energizing the things that are happening in the contemporary media space. Our little content creator, Ivana, is still using folk songs. If you're following the social media, you understand Ivana. There's the one that brought out, she has a very huge followers. Good up about and so on. And you see the number of people that have followed that particular folk music that has been popularized using a social media space. That is what our folk songs, folk expressions are doing in the contemporary space. Should I talk about gospel songs? There's huge patronage of gospel songs music in our Bible state. And we produce notable artists. Nathaniel Bassi, Moses Bliss, Prof. Esekong. If I were to do dash, I'm sure that everybody will have a name to fill because we have plenty stars of gospel music in our Bible state. And I ask, if we have such level of stars in this particular music genre, why don't we consider during Easter periods like this to just do a gospel music festival featuring only Bible gospel music? There would be huge patronage. The entire Nigeria would come the way we go to the experience in Lagos. But let's choose the right time and get people to come out. We have plenty traditional dances, the break, compi, asiago boyka, name them. We have a lot of traditional festivals. There's actually Yam Festival somewhere in this Akwa Ibom, in the Yam producing area towards the northern part. But there's one that came up recently, and I'm surprised that it's not being pushed. Sometime, I think in 2018, the NDDC and Champion Breweries sponsored the Cassava Festival. And if you see the value of cassava to our own culture, you will understand that we should be doing more of Cassava Festival than Yam Festival. Let's see how we can push such initiatives. There are many other traditional festivals, wrestling festivals, Boko festivals, and so on. But alongside this, we also have contemporary festivals, one of which is AKSUFEST. And we could also talk about the Akwa Ibom Christmas Unplugged series. And again, somewhere along the line, somebody brought up the idea of Orange Carnival. Orange Carnival was supposed to commemorate the creation of Akwa Ibom State on 23rd of September in 1987. And original concept was such that every person performing will come with a touch of orange. That is how to advertise yourself. And we have a very rich masquerade culture and story. Now let's leave and talk about our visual art and craft domain. We have a lot of wood carvings, we have a lot of weaving. When you talk about wood carving, what comes to mind? Masks, figurines. Which place comes to mind? When you talk about weaving, which place comes to mind? Because of their raffia. That city is actually called Raffia City. And the things they do with raffia are amazing. They are very creative people. That is who we are in our Akwa Ibom State. And that is what we need to globalize. We have some pottery produced using culture somewhere in our economy. There is a village called Yafronguru, and they specialize in all sorts of ceramics. But I also want to believe that there are other pottery cultures where there are clay deposits, because that really is the nature of art. Where you have fiber, you see a lot of magic. Where you have raffia, you see a lot of raffia work. And where you see clay, definitely there will be some pottery or ceramic cultures around those areas. As back in time when there were a lot of mud houses, we used to have a lot of architectural decorations on mud walls. And the pigments were taken from plants, from clay sources and so all around us. These things can be reinstated, perhaps in museums, so that people come and see that we have some cultural rooting and history. There's also body decoration, a cooking that was done way back in time. And some people still do it. I thank God for our traditional makeup artists who still draw those motifs and use them in some of their makeup design. And funeral arts. Enter the graveyard. Enter family burial yards. You see a lot of gravestones that are beautifully adorned by sculptural pieces. Those pieces did not fall from the sky. They were produced by some of our artists. And the literary domain, we have a lot of storytelling, proverbs, riddles. And besides all the three domains that I have mentioned and discussed in brief, we also have a lot of activities going on in the contemporary space. There are distinguished Akwa Ibom artists who have also produced contemporary art, painting, sculptures, ceramics, textiles, and those things that are being displayed in galleries and museums, even outside Nigeria. Now we move to the later part of my lecture, which talks about the agenda and the achievement agenda. If we want to globalize our arts and culture, which I have profiled briefly, what should we do to globalize what we do? There are two fronts I could argue that we could use. One is to use the option of disruptive innovation. It's often used in business, where you bring up a new product and you nurture that product to unseat the earlier ones. But it might be a bit complicated, so I'd rather choose to extend the discussion on what I call re-engagement. So what is re-engagement in this context? It's a situation where your existing art, once are profile for instance, and cultural forms are repackaged and relaunched on prominent platforms for visibility. It's assumed that prominence facilitates value. It will even heighten value and attract patrons. Once we place them very well, people will see them will come and patronize. There are options in re-engagement, and I'll go through them one by one. The first option is to begin global performances and tours and exhibitions for publicity. If you have it and you hide it in your bedroom, if you have it and you hide it in Pinnacle Theatre, very many people will not know what you have and patronize. When the national troupe was formed in the early 90s, they did a lot of tours all over the world, and they became very popular. Some of them were, some of those performances were actually paid for by other countries. They went on invitation. In fact, it got to a point that they became a major tool for diplomatic engagement. Another way to globalize our product is that we could begin to see how we can launch some of these artistic and cultural products using the Dirty December theme. If we followed the performance during the end of the year, particularly around Lagos, Port Harcourt, Owerri, probably even up to Ghana, you probably would have heard the term Dirty December. It's actually, it has become synonymous with some kind of cannibalistic form, some excitement and fun, free spirit and fanfare, when people come together in the period of December holidays to have fun. There is no fun if you don't create the fun. So what we're saying is that people already know the level. They're already promoting this level using the hashtag Dirty December. So why don't we key into that level and also see how we can flow? I am proposing that apart from maybe Accra, Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja, Owerri, the popular venues for the 18th December, Uyo can also be a destination. We'll filter what we produce. We'll key in some of the products that we already have in the 30th December calendar. Uyo is well connected. Akwa Ibom as a whole is well connected in terms of transportation and communication network. So it's a viable location for 30th December activities. We should see how we can use the social media publicity platform for content amplification. If social media is being used for political campaigns and for social justice, why can't we use them for cultural publicity? It's actually our domain. Let's see how we can engage even the influencers to see how they can carry our promotion around. I'm also suggesting that we collaborate with international museums and galleries and educational institutions. In some of my tours, I have seen Nigerian art in places, not only Nigerian art, other artistic cultures have come to exhibit in some museums and some galleries. And I see that some exhibits, some items, some artifacts that are exhibited in these places are done just for a period of time, maybe for 3 months, and these things are brought out and taken back. So we can see how we can use that option to collaborate with showcases and globalizing sport. We have certain unique selling platforms. We can establish indigenous cultural movements, and I cite the fact that Atiena and Paraguay agree very well in this regard. There are so many alliances that we can latch onto, like the United Nations Declaration on the rights of indigenous people and their arts. We can key into that protocol and see how we can also globalize our protocol. We promote brand equity. Akwa Ibom art should have a viable, a very strong brand equity. Now, if you want to understand the discussion on brand equity, you want to go and buy any cola drink, you likely go and tell the person that you need food because of the brand equity of food. You want to go and buy seasoning, you likely go and tell somebody you need Maggi because of Maggi's brand equity. So why can't somebody come to say that you need Akwa Ibom art? We should develop a very strong brand equity. And what should come to mind, and I said I'm going to mention this again, we should build brand awareness and promote patronage. The word or the phrase, use your own, should be recurrent. You use your own. If you don't use your own, nobody will promote your own. I said this before and I needed to emphasize. Art should be used as a soft power for destination and location market. Many people come in for art that are called art tourists, and those ones are bringing in so much added value. They will sleep somewhere, they will eat, they will do so many other things. All these things are large on. And in closing, let me say that we have so much in our Akwa Ibom state in terms of art and cultural heritage. We have so much to offer to humanity. It is important to repackage our arts and cultural forms in their diverse forms to attract global audiences. This is what this AKSUFEST is about. Let us keep it running. The show must go on.